I think we could have enough time for another call if anybody wants to call in as well. But we've got this. I think this is a repeat caller, a Mr. Marcus in Texas.
Yep.
Atheist friend who doesn't believe in God but believes Eclipse is a conspiracy brought about by the deep state.
So yeah, Marcus, him. Thank you for calling in. You're on the line. Truth Wanted, what do you got for us, Chief?
Thank you for taking my call. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. I have a friend who seems to be a little inconsistent in the way that they evaluate evidence, I guess. We've had several discussions on several different topics, but this is just kind of the latest one. They definitely think that religion is all bunk. They don't believe it, but they are somehow convinced. I don't know if they've been watching a little too much of a certain type of media news source, but they are convinced that this whole eclipse thing is just kind of a cover-up by what they call the deep state.
Okay.
I immediately have one question. What
Okay.
are they covering up?
See, that's what I can never quite get to.
The sun, I guess, with the moon, I suppose.
You know what? Yes, there is a cover-up, and Jamie hit on it right on the head.
So that they've never given you an explanation as to what they actually think they're covering up.
See, that's what I can never quite get, and I don't know. I'm not trying to encourage their belief in it. I'm trying to be skeptical and stay skeptical with it. And I ask them questions like this. And what I get back is, well, it'll all be revealed when this so-called eclipse happens. And I try to walk them through some logical things. I try to walk them through like, well, this is not something that was just announced. This is something that has been known. You can pull up a farmer's almanac from, I don't know, 1953 and see that there was going to be eclipse on this day. But all of this just kind of washes off their back. It doesn't seem to matter. So I guess maybe what I'm trying to do is see if either of you might have some tactics I can use. It doesn't seem like logic or following a process or looking at evidence is doing anything, because then I'll also get the whole, well, that's what they want you to believe. That's what they've set up. They've set this whole thing. It's a long con.
Yeah. So So one of the things is this a newer atheist? Is this sometimes we would say a baby atheist, somebody who's just deconverted, or have they been an atheist for a while?
About 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. That could still be a baby atheist. Here's one thing I would say as far as like atheists is concerned. There are some atheists, and especially new ones, who, when they put away bad reasoning, not all the bad reasoning, they put away some of the bad reasoning, they will sometimes turn into what I like to call the arbiter of reason. And very rarely are they ever an arbiter of reason. They just were able to put away one or two things, and they need to keep on that. And I would encourage somebody like that not to just say, oh, you're wrong. I would say, look at your evidence, look at your sources. If it's somebody who, you said certain medias, yeah, unfortunately that can poison the well for some people. And it's hard to say, well, don't watch that. And it's like, I knew it. You're part of that as well. And it's like, oh, no. I want you to just keep an open mind, be skeptical. It's like, I'll watch that with you. And if we don't come to the same conclusion, where are we at that point? You have an atheist friend who, believes that this is a deep state. I've known an atheist who will say that the pyramids are apartment complexes and that the ancient Egyptians didn't build them. And when I first heard that, I'm just like, I don't know where we go from there.
I've got a couple of observations myself as well, just to piggyback on Jason's point. It might be, if he has recently left religion, it might
4
be
or 5 years.
Yeah, it might be a backlash in that if you have attested yourself to a belief system that then you have figured out is false, and that you've essentially been lied to your whole life, that might throw you off the brink of trust into not trusting anything and only trusting what you can come up with yourself, or from the fringiest sources, because the man is, of course, the enemy. But the other thing I would say is that people who are into these kinds of conspiracies, you might want to show them that you believe in certain conspiracies yourself, because there's evidence. I always bring out MK Ultra as one of the big ones, where the US government did some real heinous stuff and real weird shit during the Cold War. But we know about that. We know about PRISM. We know about all of these conspiracies because the evidence has come out.
There's document. A lot of these conspiracies that are found out to be true, the great light bulb conspiracy amongst different corporations, the reason why we know about that is because it was recorded. And yeah, they didn't want us to know, but they jotted it down. And any conspiracy where you have to involve people, it's like, oh, why would they write it down? They don't want it to get found out. It's because you have to involve other people.
And that's one of the big defeaters of a lot of these conspiracy theories. And yeah, it may not convince your friend. I mean, plenty of flat earthers out there just go, yeah, but you don't do. When you say, do you understand how many people would have to be in on the lie and would have to be perfectly able to keep the secret for decades? And in the case of an eclipse, forever, because we've always had eclipses, about the truth of what the eclipse actually is.
As long as we've had a moon, we've had something to block out the sun.
Yep. And so how likely is that no one blabbed? I mean, we live in a world where people are spilling military secrets on video game forums, for goodness sake. So maybe approach it from that way.
Back in my day, we only did it to contractors. I would also say that places like Recovering from Religion isn't just for the theists as well. I would say that places like that would also have some more resources available to them to say, okay, let's go ahead and once again build that toolbox. Build that toolbox, because if you're using a bad tool, you got to put that tool away and get a good tool. So I would recommend that, say, hey, go talk to these guys. They might have some different ideas. And if you're a friend, you might be too close in some ways and not in another. And they may not be like, oh, well, because I know you and this, that, and the other thing, I know where your thinking is coming from already. It could be a hindrance to you. So I would encourage that, hey, go check them out. See if they got anything else that they can help you out with.
And if it becomes a point of friction and your friendship is at jeopardy and you don't want to lose it, then just have a discussion about setting boundaries and saying you just don't want to talk about this subject and respect each other's space on that. But we've talked a lot. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I appreciate everything you guys were saying, and my own kind of theory on it was that this person became an atheist not necessarily because they looked at the evidence. They and some theists sometimes accuse atheists of what went wrong with you,
being angry with God or something along those lines.
Not necessarily angry with God. It was more a case of this bad thing happened in my life, and God did nothing to prevent it. So clearly, there can't be a God. And I feel like there's a little bit of that betrayal feeling, and maybe a little bit of that. Oh, yeah. People told me all my life that God was going to be there for me, and all I had to do was pray, and He would help me, and He didn't do it.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit of distrust towards other people.
Way back when I was doing some nonprofits shows, we talked about an article where this person from India, just deconverted, became an atheist, and he suffered a lot of trauma, while a sibling of his remained within their faith, basically for the same reason. And I, first off, welcome them to the fold, because anybody who is able to have the courage to go against dogmatic practices does need to be celebrated. But I also did say, it's like, I'm concerned that this person left for the wrong reasons, or didn't have, again, they didn't build a toolbox, they left through trauma. And that can not necessarily be a lasting one.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll have a constructive conversation with your friend next time you broach the subject, either to bring him closer, they, we don't know who they are, to a better understanding of how rational thought works, or to just put this topic aside, because you may not be able to, at least now.
Or just be a sounding board. Maybe eventually they'll hear enough of what they're saying to be like, just like with our first caller. Oh, I cannot believe I was so embarrassed and I became this, and it may eventually, it may not, but it may get to the point where they're like, I can't believe I did that, and you're still the person who was there saying, you know what, I listened to all this, I didn't believe it, and now that you don't believe it and you can see why, you can still be friends. You can be stronger friends. And whenever they come to you with something else that's new, something else, so have you heard this? Do you believe that? Then you're able to get through that conversation a lot more efficiently.
So what say you?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking for maybe some different tactics that I maybe hadn't tried, but it always seems like
it's hard
there's
to
always something new coming out. Before this, well, not immediately before, but like before this, it was did you see the Air Force got a UFO on one of their fighter planes?
So yeah, it might be
this stream of.
It might behoove you then, if you care, if you want to try and dig down into the emotional reasons why he wants to believe in conspiracies in general.
Watch too many X-Files. I just want to believe.
Kind of. I mean, I have family members who are conspiracy theorists, and it's because they're afraid of the world. It is scary. And they would rather believe that there is some plan, evil as it is, than the chaos that we are actually subjected to on a regular basis. And that's my thought on it. How are you, Jason?
I think that's a very good way to wrap that one up.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for calling in. We really appreciate your candor, and hopefully you'll have some constructive conversations in the future. But you take care, okay?
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think he's called in before. It always has varied topics.
Well, it is interesting, and I think a lot of us have people like that. Like I say, I've got family members who are like that. People I love dearly, people I cherish, but who, man, the conversations can get real frustrating.